Hey, what's up everybody? Andrew from American Musical Supply here, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through some of the different sections of the VOXBOX and how you can use those to shape your bass guitar sound. So the VOXBOX, what is it? Well, it's a channel strip that includes a preamp, a compressor, an EQ, and then a de-esser slash limiter. So there's a lot of stuff going on inside of the VOXBOX. And the first thing that you really need to take notice of when you're planning to use this unit is the way that the circuit is laid out. So you'll notice I have this passive jazz bass plugged into the input. So the input control actually here is an attenuator. So what this does is, as I turn this down, it just pads the input signal down. Now you might look at the VOXBOX and look across and be like, oh cool, gain control, oh then we go into the compressor section, but that's not exactly the way the circuit's laid out. After my signal hits the input, it goes into the compressor, and then into the preamp, then the equalizer, and then the de-esser slash limiter. So with the VOXBOX, it's really about how you gain stage the sections into each other, particularly when it comes to using the compressor section there, because that's going to determine a lot about the EQ and then subsequently the limiter or the de-esser at the end. So let's jump right in. So I'm playing my vintage 80s Japanese Squier jazz bass. It's got really old strings on it, so it's quite 30 sounding, which is a sound that I like. And I'm running into the input. The attenuator, you'll notice, is all the way up. Now, because this is a passive bass, I'm not going to really need to use this because the front end here, I'm not going to be overloading the front end, basically, from the signal from my bass. If I had an active bass with a preamp in it, which we may touch on in another video, yeah, then I would have to turn that, I might have to adjust that and turn that down a little bit. So right here, I can get a good clean signal. Everything else is bypassed. The limiter, the compressor, and the EQ, it's bypassed. So let's check it out. Okay, so now, as I mentioned earlier, the next part of the circuit that the signal hits is the compressor. So let's engage that. And right now I have it set with a fast attack and a medium fast release. So these, according to the manual, this setting mimics an LA2A, which is a fairly classic compressor sound. So let's check that out. So while the Manley VOXBOX doesn't have dedicated attack and release controls in the form of a dial where it's continuously variable, you have these 5 preset time constants that you can mix and match to kind of get the character of your choosing. So the one we just listened to there with the fast attack and the medium fast release was an LA2A type setting. So now I'm going to dial this down to slow attack and a medium slow release, which the manual says is an LA3A type setting. So let's check that out, and I'll turn the threshold up a little bit or down a little bit so that more of my signal's getting compressed. So right after the compressor is the preamp. The preamp offers you gain increases in 5 decibel increments from 40 dB up to 60 dB. And what this is going to do is it's going to determine how forward or how aggressive your sound is. Now remember, the controls on this device and between the sections are highly interactive. So if I increase the gain here all the way up to 60 dB, then my preamp output is going to be pretty hot. I'm going to be hitting my EQ pretty hot, and then I'm going to hit the de-esser slash limiter pretty hot. So the advantage of having the limiter at the end of the circuit is that I can kind of tame that a little bit and use this to color my sound, this box, okay? But for right now, I'm going to leave the gain control set on the 40 dB setting. Maybe we'll check it out a little bit later on. So the EQ is a Pultec style EQ. It's laid out fairly simply, but maybe not the most intuitive thing, because you have a low peak and a high peak band, which are shelf filters that only boost, and then our mid control is a cut here. We have 11 frequency points on each one, so it does allow you to do a lot of musical tone shaping. So we're just going to take a look now. I'm going to engage this, and probably the best place to start would be the mid cut control rather than boosting initially. So let's take a look. Let's see what happens if we cut at 1.5 1.5 kilohertz. So that's 10 dB of reduction there with the center point at 1.5K. Okay, so let's back that off a little bit and maybe we'll add in some little bit of boost up around 10K, and then for a little bit of bottom, let's boost here. Roll off my neck pickup. Okay, if I want to add more boost to the low end, so it's a really musical sounding EQ. Think of it like using a wide brush to paint broad strokes rather than using a fine brush to paint detail. Right after the EQ section is the de-esser / limiter section, which for bass guitar, probably the most standard use would be to leave it on the limit function where it's going to mimic an LA2A style limiter compressor. All right, so let's turn this on. And then I'm also going to take this control here and I'm going to flip that over to the DS setting, and that's going to allow me to observe, how much gain reduction I have here from the limiter. So as I mentioned before, the gain control in particular is going to kind of determine how heavy the circuit's being loaded, which is going to determine obviously how much of that hits the limiter. So right now I'm going to leave the gain control down here. Let's check it out as it is. All right, so I can dial my threshold in a little bit more. All right, we have some pretty decent compression happening there, somewhere close to 10 dB on the peaks. All right, let's find out what happens when I increase the gain. Let's go up to 50 dB. Right, really extreme limiting there. So I can bring the threshold back. All right, even more, let's go up to 60 dB. So there you have it. We're going to do another video where we show you how using this bass and also an active P bass, how you can get some different sounds out of it, and that video will also showcase some of the more harmonically driven tones that you can get from this box too. So thanks for watching, and please remember that if you're interested in checking out a Manley VOXBOX and picking one up, you can visit americanmusical.com.